What are those principles behind the shifting world that will give me that feeling of safety, of calm, of peace, peace of mind, and so forth? That's what we really want to go into here. And to that end, of course, for those who have looked at philosophy or studied it, there are many different opinions in the world. The ones that I find most useful are those that come to a practical point. That is, besides just giving an overview of the world and its components and possible outcomes because of one's various engagements, having a sense of what to do right now, today, where I live, when I'm working, when I'm not working, when I'm with other people, that will allow me to develop a higher perspective so that I'm not overwhelmed by the world. Some philosophers end their quest with a sense of despair, that there is no real answer. Some opine that we should commit ontological suicide in the sense that let's just become nothing and say that it never happened or there is nothing. The line of teachers that I was very fortunate to connect with when I was in my teens and whom I have studied throughout the ages are from Vedanta. Veda means knowledge, philosophizing, coming to the highest of conclusions in life, and anta means end. So it's very much in concordance with philosophers like Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, who said the purpose of knowledge is to come to the end of it, to realize, as Plato said, the good. There is a form of goodness. There are eternal principles. That's why we sense them, for instance, justice. When we see something unjust, we feel, oh, that's wrong. How do we know that? It's intuitive. That's part of our sense of being connected to, as they said, these philosophers from Greece, the good. And Vedanta means there's an end to knowledge that realigns us with our ultimate purpose of life and our ultimate engagement, which, according to the Vedanta, is full of happiness. So there's a way to live in the world and not be overwhelmed by it. But beyond that, there's a way to thrive in the world and be happy, despite the ever-changing nature of the world. So this is the foundation of our ongoing discussions. And today is a perennial topic. You'll find it to be ubiquitous. It's retraining the mind. So the mind, you only get one of them, so you might as well take care of it, right? And one of the main topics in Vedanta is training the mind so that it becomes a friend. That's certainly there in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the mind can be your friend or it can be your enemy as well. We'll talk about both today. And I also have an excerpt from a famous book on Bhakti Yoga called Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad means beautiful. Bhagavata means it discusses that ultimate goal, the end of knowledge. And there is a section of the Srimad Bhagavatam that talks about reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. In fact, that's sort of the theme of the book Srimad Bhagavatam. And I picked out, just for us today, a verse from that Srimad Bhagavatam, which has tens of thousands of verses, but I picked one out, along with a couple of sentences of commentary that I wanted to read to all of you for your consideration and discussion. I know a lot of you are at work, so if you're busy, just continue to act like you're busy and listen. If you're in a place where you feel like participating, you can Feel free to turn on your camera. We don't care if you're wearing pajamas in the afternoon. B, you can write it in the text box and express yourself, and we'll be attentive to what you say. And C, you can speak up. Or there's a D option, which is all of the above. So feel free to avail yourself to our little group today so we can have some discussion. And yes, I got back from a month-long tour in India. I went to 3 major places. One was called Mayapur. It's along the east coast of India. It's right by the Ganges River. A sight to behold. I love rivers. I love sitting by them. They're timeless. They carry everything away with them. It reminds me of life itself and the time factor. And then after that, I went to Jagannath Puri. That's right on the sea coast, on the east coast of India. And it's a bustling city. People come from all over the world, from every country, to visit the famous Jagannath Puri temple, which has been there for thousands of years. And then thirdly, I went to a place called Vrindavan. Has anybody experimented with the festival called Holi, Holi, where some places like in Utah and other places, they have grand festivals where they throw colors? Has anybody thrown colors before? JM smiling. Maybe he got hit by some. And Manu is putting her thumbs up. Yeah, a friend of mine has a huge property in Utah, and at least once a year, he has this festival that tens of thousands of people come to so they can, what they call play holy, which is they throw colors. They're powdered colors. Some people put them in a syringe and shoot them. And that was the time of year in Vrindavan, the place I was, where people were playing holy, throwing colors at one another. You see people walking along that are multicolored. Their hair is colored. Their faces are colored. I think it comes off quite easily in most cases. But it was a festive time there. And I just saw people join together for, it's actually, the root of it is a spiritual festival. And people have a lot of fun. And they come together. They sing, chant, throw colors, and enjoy life. I just saw people from many, many different cities, villages come together as one. It was quite nice. Nina, you've thrown colors before?
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
You
I
still
did
have
it
them?
in
Did they come out?
2000. They do come out. Some
Okay.
colors which are organically made, they are very easy to take them off. But some are. So in our childhood days, where we used to have these embossing type of colors, where silver and that kind of stuff were very hard to remove, so we had to use those gasoline kind of
Oh
liquids
my
too.
God. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, try everybody
Parents,
not to get hit with those ones.
nowadays nobody's doing that. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah,
Yeah, in the old days, we used to use all kinds of
yeah,
non-organic things for things that were
correct.
dangerous for
And
health.
that was just once a day, once in a year, so everybody could say, okay, worth it maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, Nina. Okay,
Hare Krishna.
I think you're driving through an electrical storm there, it sounds like. Uh, well, colors aside, there's a famous teaching in the Srimad Bhagavatam, besides the one I'm going to read to you today, that describes how our consciousness becomes colored. It describes how originally our consciousness is pure. When we're in pure consciousness, there's no disturbance. When the mind becomes pure, it's joyful. This is called prasanna atma. Atma is a name for the self. It's also a name for the mind. And prasanna means happy. So this is something to look forward to. It's not that we always have to be harassed by the mind or by circumstances that affect our minds, but we can come to this stable state of mind, which is called prasannatma. It's also called nishta, which means steadiness of mind. That means we remain steady no matter what happens. You know, so many people, even there's a famous football coach who once said, it's 10% of life is about what happens to us, 90% is about what we do about what happens to us. All of you have heard that before, right? Let's light up the chat box. If I say right, you can put a yes or no. Unless you're driving, in which I could, don't bother. I would rather you stay with your eyes fixed on the road. So how do we develop our minds? We have to retrain them. Fortunately, the mind is highly trainable. It's good to know. Even later in life, we can train the mind. According to science, the mind has this quality of neuroplasticity, which means that it's malleable. We can take up a course of life and practice through which we retrain our mind. And there are very specific teachings about how to do that. And why not take them up and see how, by attending to our mind a little more carefully, not just living in such a way that whatever happens, happens, and whatever way our mind decides to drag us, we just go with it. But we can actually culture a kind of steadiness called nishta. It comes from a word shta in Sanskrit that's cognate with the word stand in English. It means you have a steady place where you're not pushed around. The mind can be in that state. We can train our minds in that way. So Jam, let's show a few slides. I'm trying to get a little reciprocity here. So everybody keep in mind that I'm going to stop at intervals and ask for your reflections. Feel free to blurt out whatever you have on your mind or whatever you feel is, well, let's say if you hear something that you'd like to discuss further, please bring it up in the chat box or just say something about it. So we have here in our first slide a personality sitting, and you'll notice the aura around her. She has a myriad of images, and if we sit in a similar posture and note what we have moving about in our aura around our minds, we might notice something similar. Hey, can you identify any objects in there, anybody? Are they descriptive enough to identify any of those things? Twitter, social media. God, that's all there is nowadays. There is nothing else besides Twitter and social media. So that must be all that's there. We may have, we do have, according to the ancient wisdom literatures, stacks and stacks of impressions. I don't know if stacks is proper. We have a reservoir of impressions. So what to do about all that? Let's look at the first slide. Slide number 3 says, everything is recorded and stored in your mind, in your subconscious mind. It's a storage place. And the aggregate of our mental impressions becomes what one professor at Carnegie Mellon, if I'm not incorrect, is that the professor that uses this phraseology of default mode network, or is it another one? Who's the one who said that? We've been in conversation with several academics lately because we're doing a project of sharing ideas from the Bhagavad Gita and the ancient wisdom literatures with leading academics. In any case, one of them, and Jan will find it, said this aggregate of mental impressions, recognized in modern psychology also as our subconscious mind's storage of thoughts and impressions and feelings, creates what's called a default mode network. And drawing upon that default mode network, we might engage in what's called mind scrolling. Our phones. Does anybody have a phone near them right now? If your phone is within arm's reach, give me a sign. A few people. MJ, Salvikus. Yeah. Okay, it's nearby, right? If you look into your phone, it seems to have an unlimited source of faces, impressions, ideas, and so forth. Our mind's kind of like that. Whatever channels you've allowed on your device, whatever you've downloaded to your device, it's all in there. And if you want to scroll it, you can just open randomly anywhere and just move your thumb and you'll see one thing after another. So the collection of all of our thoughts, experiences, and feelings, and let's just get a wider context here. In the system of the ancient philosophers from the Vedic times, I'm not going to say India because it was much wider than India, the Vedic concepts, said that this lifetime we're in it's just one tiny little glimpse into our sojourn in the material world. We're spiritual beings, but we're in a material world, and we take on one body after another according to our activities and our mentalities. But we've had many lifetimes, unlimited lifetimes, and in each of them we collect these mental impressions. So you say, well, if the body's finished and it's burned to ashes, then how do we still have those? Well, the answer is that we burn our physical body to ashes, or it gradually decomposes and becomes redistributed. The water element goes back into the water. The air element in our body goes back into the reservoir of air. The earth aspect of our body gets merged back into earth. And there are various ways that happens. However, our mental body continues. In this lifetime, we may collect mental images and pile them in, or pour them into the reservoir of other mental impressions we've had from previous lives. When we leave this gross physical body, we take our mental body with us. In fact, that's what determines how we're going to get another gross material body, what we've collected in our mental body. This is the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. It's not that we have one life, somehow magically we've appeared, combination of material chemicals creates a personality, not at all. We're completely separate from the material apparatus, and that includes both the physical gross body and the physical mental body. We're different from both of those, but we do carry with us, the non-material element that's in the body called consciousness carries with us the mental body from one life to the next. So we have an aggregate. It's collected in there, just like when you change your iPhone from one to the next, you take all your impressions with you, right? You get a new phone, you transfer all the other junk you've got into the next phone. Or it's probably good stuff. So the aggregate of your mental impressions becomes your default mode network. That means your disposition and your tendency to do certain things. That's why I say default mode. Why do we do things the way we do? It's because of the aggregate of impressions we have. And that can result in what's called mind scrolling. So what's mind scrolling look like? Rumination. Does anybody have a definition for it? Maybe put it in the chat box. What is rumination? Worry. Does anybody here ever worry? Hope I'm not talking to myself here. Okay, JM. Anybody else worries? Is it just me? A few other people? Zyla, continued chewing of your thoughts. Panda, replaying the same thoughts over and over again. Yeah. If you ever have resentment, look at the word resentment. It says resent. It's like you You sent it, and you keep sending it back to your mind. Keep pushing the same button back and again and again. So worry about things that are possibly going to happen in the future, right? And then we have distraction, and we try to get relief from the distraction by taking refuge in scrolling our minds, looking for some solution, but we end up in this default mode network. So, one of the objectives of yoga is to rise above the default mode network and rise above mind scrolling. Don't just scroll your mind all the time. Same old stuff. So, what to do? Well, let's look into some solution. Well, let's start some solution thinking here, Jam. What do you think?
Yeah, I just want to answer the question. It was Professor Brewer from Brown University who coined the term default mode network that we are in
Drewer
conversation.
with a D, right? Or Brewer?
B, B,
B.
B
Yeah,
for
we're
back.
meeting him next week, right?
Yes.
We have an appointment to talk to him. He's written a book. I forget the name of it, but he's very interested in meditation and so forth, and wanted to discuss Bhagavad Gita. So we have an appointment to talk to him. And that was in looking at his material, we found his concept to be parallel with that of the Bhagavad Gita and the default mode network. Okay, let's look at slide number 4. We're trying to get some relief here now that we've recognized this phenomena which keeps us endlessly engaged in scrolling the mind. Looks like the same guy. How to retrain your mind. I'm glad this guy's getting a little help. Become aware of your default mode. First of all, you have to become aware of the fact that there is a default mode network, a DMN. It's constantly churning, and the first step to solving any problem, I'm going to make an axiomatic statement, and I hope you try to challenge me, is awareness. If you have any issue that you want to solve, first you have to become aware what the issue is. So if you've ever felt worried, or you find yourself mind scrolling, engage in rumination, seeking shelter and distraction to get away from the mind, then what? You may benefit from awareness that you're doing it, because there is a way to be fully engaged in the mind and just think, this is who I am and this is my world. And there's a difference between us or our life, and we are the life of our body, and our life situation. Does anybody here have a life situation? How's it going? Probably good, right? But it's constantly changing, so you never know what's going to happen next. That's identification with a changing world or a changing body. Hey, if you become aware of your body and you're absorbed in the body, like let's just say you look in the mirror and you say, oh, that's me. But then you look in the mirror in a year or two and you think, wait a minute, how come I look different? There's lots of ways in which the body, which is a biological entity, we're not biological, we're beyond biology as conscious beings. Biology is always changing, and it can be a little disconcerting, isn't it? People dye their hair. I mean, I just solved the problem. I just cut mine off completely. I don't have to think about it. But people grow their hair and then they think, well, how come it's getting gray now? Maybe that's a sign of I'm getting older. I would rather, reverse that process, and I'll just put some dye in it, and that way I won't have to think about it. But somehow then the roots come out. It's like, whoops. So there's an obsession. It's called abhinibheshata, absorption in the temporary situation that we're in. Our body really, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm hoping somebody's going to challenge me on some of these things. Our body is a situation. We're in it temporarily. It's just a temporary situation. It's not us. And if we identify with the body and we say, this is me, it's disconcerting because the body's always changing. What to speak of the world? Geopolitical activities are constantly in flux, yes or no? Kinda. That's the other answer, kinda, yeah. And what to speak of the weather? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, part of self-realization, a foundational part, is not being disturbed by changes. I mean, who's not disturbed by changes? Your car's in one piece and then somebody rams into it. Now it's in two pieces. Are you okay with that? I mean, everything in the material world is in flux one way or the other. So if I identify with that situation of the ever-changing world of which my body is a part, and I get carried away by it, then I constantly feel as if I'm in a whirlpool. I'm being moved from one place to the next beyond my will, against my will. So, first step is to become aware of your default mode. That means notice the aggregate of thoughts that are there. Notice that the body, and you can understand this philosophically from the Bhagavad Gita, is a product of our own mental states carried over to this present body we're in now. Awareness. Let's look at awareness a little more carefully in the next slide. This is the practical thing. Take time each day. When you hear that and you know, okay, something practical is coming. Try to keep this really simple because it is simple in a way. It's like flipping a switch. Switches are simple. All you have to do is flip them. I guess that's why people like them so much. So if you take time each day, first sit. It was a big question before I go past the first word. Can we sit without a phone at arm's length? That's probably the first step. Sit with your phone in another state or county or state. Mail it off somewhere. Lock it in the car and give your keys to your dog who's going for a walk. And then sit. And then you may notice when you sit, you didn't even need your phone for distraction. Maybe the default mode network starts to distract you. That's a step in the right direction. Notice that your mind is moving and that you're being distracted by your own mind. That's a kind of awareness that can go a long way. So sit and notice. Hey, did I get the definition for the word I asked for? Nobody put it up. I don't have a research department. I guess my funding ran out for the research department. Which word did I ask for?
Rumination, I think.
Yeah.
And we did get
Where's all our
some.
research we paid for last year?
They're just returning from
Oh,
vacation.
okay. What about the word notice? Somebody just find it in the dictionary or on Etymoline, the etymological dictionary, and just throw it up there on the chat box. Rumination is the habit of compulsively dwelling on negative feelings. Oh my God, that's worse than I thought. Rumination is the habit of compulsively dwelling on negative feelings, mistakes, or distressing situations without finding solutions, acting as a mental loop. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, what about the word notice? Oh, look, there's more here. Thanks, everybody. Silas, rumination originates from 16th century Latin ruminatus, the past participle of ruminari. Good name for a kid, ruminari, meaning to chew the cud or to revolve in the mind. Yeah, okay. Could somebody similarly put up the word notice? Let's see what notice. You know, the very fact that we can notice things is indicative of our true nature as conscious beings. Let's see what Nina has to say.
Um, uh, Scientifically, I think rumination, I heard when I was growing up as a science student, that the cow, when it has its meal, it sits and starts ruminating its own food, brings it out, chews again, and swallows it back again.
Yeah. Okay.
That is what rumination is,
That
what I thought.
conforms with what. Okay, Nina, you're in a your electrical storm somewhere. I don't know. Are
Oh,
you?
sorry.
You might be like
About
on
my
the North
uh,
Pole or something, closer to the
yeah, the
electrical.
Bluetooth is sometimes creating problems for me. Yeah,
Okay.
is that clear now?
Yeah, we
Am I,
heard what you said. We heard what you said, and it's there from Zyla put in meaning to chew the cud, or to chew the cud means cows. They sit and chew on their cud. And then we have JM put in notice is early 15th century information, knowledge, intelligence from Old French and directly from Latin, notitia, a being known, celebrity, fame, knowledge from notice, known past participle of nocere, come to know, get acquainted with, from Proto-Indo-European gno, sco, or suffix from Proto-Indo-European root gno, to know. The act of observing or paying attention to something. For example, I didn't notice the change in the schedule. Yeah, so this is, looking into these words is profound in the sense that they give us a clear idea of the phenomena going on within our own minds. And so to sit and notice that you are not your body. Now remember I promised you a quote at the beginning. Remember I said I promised you a quote from a famous book on Bhakti Yoga? Only one
Yes.
person said yes. Okay. I'm going to read it to you now. Fair enough? This is democracy here, so I need a quorum.
Please.
All right. Okay, here it goes. It may be proposed that this world is permanently real because it is generated from the permanent reality. But such an argument is subject to logical refutation. Sometimes, indeed, the apparent non-difference of a cause and its effect fails to prove true, and at other times the product of something real is illusory. Furthermore, this world cannot be permanently real, for it partakes of the natures of not only the absolute reality, but also the illusion disguising that reality. Actually, the visible forms of this world are just an imaginary arrangement resorted to by a succession of ignorant persons in order to facilitate their material affairs. With their various meanings and implications, the learned words of your Vedas bewilder all persons whose minds have been dulled by hearing the incantations of such sacrificial rituals. So, just a hermeneutical observation, and that is that although the thought process of the Vedas, everything emanates from one source, and that source is real. When we lack perspective in engaging with the energies that come from that source, they may become, for us, stumbling blocks, or because they may become illusory. And an example often is the sun is the source of energy in our universe, makes everything grow. But from that sun, there's a generation of clouds. So the heat evaporates the water, and then it obscures our vision of the sun. So we may be waylaid by an illusory perspective. And here's the comment that goes with it. The illusion of this world's permanence is sustained by a succession of blind people with opinions who learned the materialistic idea from their predecessors and pass on this illusion to their descendants. Anyone can see that an illusion often continues by the momentum of lingering mental impressions, even when its basis is no longer present. So this goes to the observation of one's own mind, that we have lingering mental impressions that come from the momentum that's created by knowledge passed down by those who are in illusion. And they opine in different ways, but they pass on knowledge that's not helpful, or their motives in passing on any information may be for a different reason other than clarifying. For instance, there's lots of information that comes to us nowadays, and the impetus behind people giving it to us is that they want to earn a profit. And so it may not be for our ultimate good, it may be to stimulate us to buy something. That's an example. And the mind becomes overwhelmed or accustomed or habituated to these sources of knowledge, and we call them lingering mental impressions. I think it's interesting, it says, even when its basis is no longer present, the impressions linger in our minds, and those can be vexing for us. So let's go back to the slide with that brief philosophical intermission.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jay.
there are a few comments on the Facebook. I just wanted
Okay,
to.
good.
One was from Jitendra. Why are we so much entangled in this material world?
Where is this?
This is from Facebook.
Oh, Facebook. Okay, do it again, please.
Why are we so much entangled in this material world?
So we don't take time to sit and notice our difference from it. Really, because it's just a lingering mental impression that keeps us in various habit patterns, ways of thinking, ways of acting. So we have to retrain our minds. And that's what they're in the midst of talking about, how to retrain the mind, how to rise above this reservoir of lingering impressions that impel us to act in certain ways against our ultimate good. What else?
There's one more from Steph Anderson. He says, I don't know who is doing this interesting chat.
Where's Steph at?
He's from Denver, Colorado. At least that's what his profile says.
Fantastic. Well, let's get in touch. He's definitely a keeper. Steph, get in touch with us. JM will reach out and tell you how we can talk. Let's talk afterwards. Okay, back to the slide. Oh, Bhakti Mateya says, why is being aware that we are not the body easier than understanding that we are not the mind? Well, I don't know if I agree with your premise, but let's look at this slide first, and then you can say whether it answers your question or not. Sit and notice that you're not your body. So we have two kinds of bodies. We have a mental body and a gross physical body, as per the Bhagavad Gita. And we can just as well notice that we're not the mind as we're not the body by observation. And what we can do is we can notice our own thoughts. And in the process of noticing, we can develop what's called shakshitva, which means witnesshood. So when you sit down and notice you're not your body, and I highly recommend this process, go to a peaceful place where you're not going to be distracted. Make sure your phone is in a different county. And make sure everybody knows that you're doing this as part of your spiritual practice and you're not to be disturbed during this time. No distractions. And as you sit, notice, which is the act of observing or paying attention to something, noticing. Notice the goings on in your body. You might notice your stomach, for instance, is digesting. Then notice the sensations in your feet, your hands. Then you can notice the subtle workings of your mind. And from the position of a witness, you can see that your mind is a conveyor belt. It's mechanical. It's manufacturing ideas. Normally, we just think, I am my mind, I am my activities, I am my life situation, and we just flow with it from one activity to the next. But when we go into this state of witnesshood, we stand aloof. We stand aside and we watch it and we notice that it's moving, and we can notice the difference between us watching it and the movements of our body and our mind. And why is it harder? Well, it could be harder because the mind is very subtle and we're so close to the mind, we tend to illuminate the mind. And because we look at the illumination and because we're luminous, then we think, oh, I must be my mind because it's illuminated. But it's only illuminated because we're near it as conscious beings. Now, the next stage of practice for retraining the mind, this takes the same kind of work as taming a horse. How many here are horse tamers that are on the show today? Let's see a show of hands. How many of you studied horse training and that's what you do? Shiva, do you do that? Mandira Devidasi? Nobody? Okay. Well, you might have to go to a different part of the state to find a horse trainer. Look in the yellow pages, whatever those are. Horse trainers know how to develop a relationship with a wild horse. It takes some time to develop the horse's trust, and then there are repeated activities that the person does. More likely you're going to see somebody tamed a feral cat. That's more what you're going to find on YouTube. A feral cat came. You know, some lady, she was pursuing the cat. She'd go every day and sit and then put the food out. Actually, there was a cat used to come in my backyard because I have a nice garden and cats like to come back here and hang out. But every time I'd come in the backyard, it would run away, and I'd go like, hey, I like cats. You don't have to run. And then one day, so every day I'd talk to it and stuff. It'd still run away, wouldn't let me get close. But it was sleeping one day, and I brought something really nice to eat. It was creamy. And I put it right next to her mouth when she was sleeping. She woke up, and interestingly, she didn't run away. But she smelled it, and she started licking it, and then she liked it. And we became kind of friends, but what really made her change her mind, interesting psychology, maybe it's sociology of cats. There's this other cat that loves everybody. It comes in my backyard. And so I was sitting there, and the cat came up, was rubbing against my leg, and I started petting it. And the other cat saw like, what? And then that other cat immediately came over and said, okay, if you're okay with this cat, you're going to be okay with me. And that's what really changed it. And I just noticed the psychology changed and the relationship changed. And then she wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I come in the back, she was following me around. At some point, I thought, maybe I shouldn't have made such good friends. In any case, the mind is a similar entity. We have to take time to make friends with the mind and retrain it so that it becomes a friend of ours. And this is an example given in these ancient literatures, because obviously they're at that time in the kind of society they had a lot of instances to interact with wild horses and then bring them into the fold so they could work together. Humans and horses can work together quite nicely, but not until there's a trusting relationship and there's a sense of cooperation. So we have to develop that with our mind. Imagine if you had a completely cooperative relationship with your mind. This is the source of happiness. Prasanatma, happy mind, wants to help us. Okay, where were we in the slides? We're almost there. Go ahead, Jam.
There are a couple of more comments on Facebook.
Thanks, Facebook people. Fantastic.
Jitendra says thank you from Fiji and Canada.
Fiji and Canada? How can you be in two places at once?
Yeah, good question. I hope I get the answer soon. And Steph Anderson said, yes, feral cat lives with me now, tame, but the feral in her is always there.
So Steph's a cat whisperer. That's good. We definitely got to get in touch with him after the show. Find out what's going on there in Colorado. Okay. The second part of sitting and taking some time to notice, to observe that you're not your body. Anybody can do this at any time. You just have to do it. Is to repeat mantra. 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 It's a sound channel. Sound has such an effect on us. There's sound therapy now. In fact, you know, people that have Parkinson's, they can lose their ability to walk because there is a part of the nervous system that calibrates how our legs move in sync. And when that gets disrupted because of the degenerative nature of Parkinson's, people can be stalled in their walking. However, music therapists now have shown that there are certain kinds of music you can listen to with certain rhythm, so that even those who have that developed Parkinson's and have lost the ability to walk can walk again by listening to the music. The sound of the music, it recalibrates the nervous system so that you can walk again. Sound is very powerful. And so in the ancient Vedic system, there's a way in which the sound vibration itself, there's different qualities of sound, and there's spiritual sound. And so that comes in a little package called a mantra. And you say, well, I don't know how that works. Well, just work it. There's a lot of stuff in this world you don't know how it works, right? Admit it. You don't know what's it. Unless you went to pharmacology school. And even if you did, you still don't know exactly how it all works, right? You just know certain combinations and permutations of things work. Certain things, you just work them, right? Yeah? So same thing with a mantra. You repeat the mantra. Repeat, repeat. Now, why do you repeat it? Because when you repeat it, you'll start to notice that you're saying it, and your mind may think, why don't I say something else? I want some variety. No, stick with the mantra and try to notice it, because there's a depth to the mantra. There's something in it that recalibrates the mind. Just as the music can recalibrate a person whose nervous system has been degraded by a disease and they can walk again. So similarly, our mind can get back in sync by the power of the mantra. So say it, use your tongue, lips, say the mantra, listen to the mantra. Now this may be difficult because scrolling, which is what everyone's addicted to, means random variety. So this is the same thing over and over again. And this is one of the lessons for you have to teach your mind. That's like you teach a horse again and again to go back to a certain stance and come over to take a certain kind of food. You do this over and over again, repeat the mantra, and bring your mind back to the mantra. It may run away, but then you just gently bring it back, gently bring it back, gently bring it. That's practice to retrain your mind. So fortunately, there are mantras that are authorized. Yeah, there's two words here, author and authorized. You know that little word "ized"? It comes from Greek originally. It's a little verb-making machine. You turn something into the act of doing something. Whatever it is, you just put eyes on the end. Here, somebody give you something, we'll turn it into a verb with putting eyes on the end. Like victim, eyesed. Product, productized. Flashback to Sesame Street. Is this like Sesame Street? I missed that whole era. I think I was.
They used to form words like two halves would be one on the left, one on the right, and they'd say them slowly. And as it went closer together, it became one word.
I love it. I love doing that kind of stuff. When I work with kids, I always go into the etymology and try to look at the words. You know, like Zayla, I was thinking of consequence. You put those sequence. I understand. There's steps that take place, like dominoes. They move from, there's a sequence that happens there, and then consequence. You do something, and there's a sequence that naturally unfolds from it. I got to go back and look at some Sesame Street stuff. Thanks. Fantastic. So anyway, there's an author. Author means an originator, somebody who creates something. So the idea is that the mantra comes from our original divine source. And then there's author and authorized. Then there's people that pass it down because they carry the mantra forward. Like a mail person, a person delivers the mail. They just give it to you. So the mantra gets passed down through many generations, through authorized channels. And then if you take the mantra, it can be highly influential in your life by taking time every day to repeat the mantra. Sit first, see you're not your body, see you're not your mind. What a relief, too. It's like if you have a huge debt. Anybody have any student loans? Sorry to bring it up, forget it. And then somebody comes into office and they say, no more student debt. Like, how do you feel? Much better. So similarly, when we're able to see I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, a glimpse of that every day puts you in a very advantageous position, which is to notice that I'm not my life situation. You can deal with your life a lot more effectively when you realize that it's not me. So that is, you're dealing from a detached position. You're not completely attached to the outcome, and it's not gut-wrenching. So the mantra then has its own power. And if you meditate on mantra, say it, listen to it, and then repeat it, and then listen to it again. Do that every day for a certain amount of time that you decide, whether it's a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Some people do it for much longer because you can come to a position in chanting mantra where you reach a position of absorption when you'd rather not do anything else for the time being. Your mind's not pulling you anymore, and you feel this is fulfilling being in this position. That's ideal. You can reach that position. Let's see if there's any questions. Yes, Vicky.
Thank you. I really appreciated the quote that you shared, and I had a question based off of the quote. How do we do our duty in the illusion without getting sucked into the illusion? And I know you've said before that balance is it's staying always in the center, but pulling yourself back. But time and time and again, I find, despite best efforts, that I do get sucked into the illusion. For example, I was at sales kickoff this week, and I noticed that outside of sleeping and eating, I would just roll up, get out of bed, and go straight to the meeting. And I had a moment where I realized, okay, this doesn't require my immediate attention or maybe my attention at all. But sometimes I feel a sense of being addicted to anxiety. And I know that there's a duty to do. And maybe this just goes back to living like a lotus.
Yeah, that's the metaphor from the Bhagavad Gita. So let's follow that. You've put some ideas there. And in the last slide, Jam, why don't you put that up? Because this has an inkling for something very practical. Even if you can't do mantra, some people find it very difficult to sit down and meditate. Or you may have a day when you have to wake up and just go. So what do you do then? This is another recommendation from Bhagavad Gita, is to do one act of selfless service every day. Because it takes you away from the mind and body in a similar way that meditation does. Selfless service means you're not seeking reward, either the fame of doing it, the notoriety of doing it, I should say, or no remuneration at all. You do something purely out of a sense of service to a worthy person or cause. And when you do that, you find some kind of satisfaction that's beyond the kind of reward system that our mind is used to in the material world. And so if you're on the fly, if you're stuck in a situation where you have to work really hard, think of what you can do, one act, at least one act of selfless service in the day. It'll change your whole trajectory and way of thinking in that particular day. I wrote this book called The Four Questions, and one of them is, how may I be of service? And this question itself pulls us away from the bodily conception of life. The body is bent on survival and profit. And when we think of doing service for service, then it takes us away from that paradigm that I am a biological entity that needs to survive in this world. So think of something today, homework, that you can do, selfless service for someone else, maybe anonymously. And just thinking about it, you'll notice that it takes you out of the maelstrom of your own mind and the ruminations, the worry and things like that, the anxieties. Thank you. It's a relevant question, I think, for everyone. Well, JM, we presented the topic. We gave a few simple ideas. I thank everybody for taking their valuable time today to come and listen. You asked nice questions. You gave so many reflections. We had an ad hoc research team that volunteered and did an act of selfless service by looking things up. All in all, it was quite a nice experience. And I thank you all for joining. Now, as far as mantras go, we'll have to come to that in the next session, right? Mantra. Man means mind, tra means to deliver. But do practice. There's a few mantras. I don't know what we should do, JM. Give them next time, or you want to throw something up there?
Sure, we can throw something up.
Throw something up there, and then you can try this mantra. Just try it out and do your homework this week of sitting and chanting Nitai Gauranga. You can do, or there's the Hare Krishna mantra too. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. There's Om, and that one too. Those three. We'll throw those in for free at the end here. Well, JM, yeah, I just got back from India. I didn't stop in the Himalayas, but we flew over them. And I was remembering our friends who live in caves. You know, they eat roots. I was trying, what kind of roots do they eat? Mostly turmeric, ginger, and a little amla. If you mix those with some lemon juice, a little salt, you have a yogi salad. And that's what they eat. And they're joyful. When they see each other, when they depart from one another, they have this ritual. It's very joyful. They say, Hari Bol, means keep the transcendental vibration going. And I just thought, even if you didn't get your turmeric root, ginger root, and amla salad today, you can still say Hari Bol as we leave. What do you think? All right. Hari Bol!
Haribo!